Listen, I know you clicked on this by mistake, but before you leave, because I'm such a horrendous monster, trust me, this is the best you're gonna get. And it is exactly what you deserve. And that, of course, is all the Kickstarter, backer kit, game found board game campaigns that are finishing up this week. This is Crowdfunding Countdown, episode 54. Thanks for being here. My name is Chris George. And having reached episode 54, I can confidently say that I almost know what I'm talking about. But actually, we have a pretty good week. There are a lot of really solid campaigns finishing up that I'm excited to talk about. It's nice finally getting, a better week than just a completely jokey week, although I'll be sure to tell one single joke this entire time, and maybe I'll lift you from the miserable existence that is my life. But first off, before we get into the week, I want to give a huge shout out to my newest patrons. It is because of you that I continue to do this series in particular, and that I can justify spending as much time on this channel as I do. So thank you so much to Bad Boy Bastien, Powerhouse Paul, Debonair Daniel, and Randy Russell. Oh no, I'm sorry, Russell. I understand if you all want to cancel your pledges now. No, but seriously, thank you so much, Daniel, Paul, Bastien, and Russell. You are the friggin' bomb. I appreciate it tremendously, and all of you, my loving patrons, all of whom I can't wait to play Spicify with. Thank you, as always, for your continued support. Really means the world to me, and warms the robotic circuits and nuts and bolts that exist in this area of my creation. If you happen to watch this channel frequently and you feel like throwing me a couple bucks, you think I'm worth 25 cents, well then head on over to Patreon, there's the link in the description. But enough of that pitch, you shill. Let's get on to the free entertainment. And that is with all of the games that are finishing up this week, starting with Dead Throne 2nd Edition. And unfortunately not The Axe, which is the top-rated Christian board game, also finishing up tomorrow. Top-rated at just below 9,000 on Board Game Geek rating. No, we're not covering that because honestly that's the only funny thing that I could think to say about it. The real miracle here is not Jesus' second coming and everyone spreading the word all over the country to people who definitely want to receive it and aren't just interested in the free medical supplies. No, the real miracle is that this video is coming out on time. But luckily, Dead Throne is a campaign that really rejuvenated me. It was one that I didn't know anything about and was looking into, and the video is really top-notch. It gets you excited for the game, even if you don't care what the game is. And the premise of the game is you're going to run around this sort of sandbox-style area. You'll roll dice to move, and then you can stop wherever you want along that path and take actions depending on what area you're in. You know, sandbox stuff. But I think my favorite mechanic about this game is the battle phase. And the fact that there is a battle phase that you are going to enter, but the battle phase will take place in real time. And so if you don't make an action in 15 seconds, then your opponent can just be like, well, I guess they're standing on the battlefield with a sword in their hand, and they can come up and punch you in the eye. And I just think that that is so funny. And I also think, I'm not particularly sure, reading through the rulebook, it wasn't completely clear to me, or maybe I missed it, but the battle phase also seems to take place in a separate phase from the other turns. So the longer this battle takes place, the more turns everyone else can kind of continue to play, or they can jump in and get pulled into the battle or enter the battle on their own to support allies and whatever. And I just think that concept of a time penalty and an actual turn penalty for a battle phase is a really innovative one. And that's something that has gotten me excited that I haven't really seen in many other games, or any that I can think of right now. I just like to say many other games, so you think I know more games than I actually do. But I really like this idea in theory. I don't know how well it'll work in practice, but then there's also the chance for you to end the battle in a deal. You say, hey, I'll give you a coin, we can stop the battle. And they can say, yeah, okay. And so you can make these mutual, quickly beneficial deals so that you don't lose out on these main turn phase, which isn't taking place in real time. It's taking place, sequentially, but you get pulled out of the sequence, it seems, if you are engaged in this battle phase. And I think that push and pull seems really interesting to me. So this is really intriguing, but it also feels like it might be attempting to do too many things at once. It's got a solo mode, co-op mode, competitive mode, which some people in my greatest value video that I put out last week said, that's what I want in my game. Well, there you go. But for me, there's only 2 competitive scenarios that you can do, and then there's a co-op scenario. It doesn't show me where the game was initially designed, and I always feel like there's a best way to play something. I usually think there's a best player count for a lot of games. There's a best mode for a lot of games, and I don't know which way would be the best. Obviously, the competitive is the one that I'm the most interested in because of that potential for the battle phase. If you're just fighting a monster in the battle phase and other people are taking their turns, at least that progresses the game forward. But I don't know. It's a tricky one for me because it does feel like there's a lot happening, and I don't know if streamlining would have helped or not, or how it could be done. Anyway, this clocks in at £60 or $95 Canadian. After shipping, it would be $118 Canadian to get to my door. And for that price, I'm not intrigued enough to actually seriously consider it. But check it out if you like sandbox style stuff, for sure. Maybe check this one out. For sure, maybe. How's that for some advice? And that finishes on Wednesday, August 10th at 10 a.m. Now, next up, we have a game called Shoes Tactics, and this is a campaign print at home roll and write. So they're finished 2 chapters right now. There's the first chapter, the intro chapter, that nobody cares about. You just have to get through it. And then there's the second, actually interesting chapter where you finally get to start to play the game. And there will be at least 5 chapters in this campaign. And then they say maybe more, depending how well this is received. So it'll be 5 chapters. And there's no shade, but like, it'll probably be 5 chapters. They've committed to 5. They will deliver on 5, and then they'll say, hey, we got an expansion. Get that. Although for $6 US, that's what it costs, you get access to all future chapters as well. So if you get in now and then they decide to do something later on to try to drum up more sales or whatever, you will get the access to that, or at least that's what they're saying. But it does seem neat. It is, in essence, a tower defense game where you are trying to defend against the onslaught of a horde who are charging at you with their arrows. And to defend, you basically have to scratch in this Tetris-shaped area, scratching in polyominoes, and that's basically like, haha, I blew up that section of the terrain, and all the people there fell into a pit of spikes and impaled themselves. But what's kind of neat is you'll have this separate sheet of 6 actions. Basically, they're dual option actions, kind of like the cards in Gloomhaven. And you'll roll a d20, which will determine which 3 you are allowed to use on your turn. And then, similar to Gloomhaven and the title of Fabio's Sex Tape, you'll pick 2 tops and 1 bottom, and get to use those actions. And you use those actions to defend yourself, probably against Fabio and the onslaught of the horde. And as the campaign progresses, they say you're going to get characters. Some of the Kickstarter characters, they have Rado in there just as Rado. And so you have like Yu Chang and like Zhao Ling and then Rado, which it kind of takes me out of the immersion. Honestly, I don't really like it when campaigns overtly put in content creators or celebrities, because you're creating the world of the game. At least make it a little less obvious that you're just throwing someone in there for fan service. But it still looks cool. And for $6 US for print at home, unfortunately not a print where you want. You must print this at your home, and you cannot print it anywhere else. If you go to the library to print it, it'll explode. You must be at your home. See, I can go both ways with it. Anyway, if you're interested in that one, that finishes up Wednesday, August 10th at 10:05 a.m. Now, next up, we have the Isle of Trains, whose video starts out with the line, "Welcome to the Isle of Trains, where only the best conductors come to build and run our famous locomotives." There is a strict conductor screening process that every would-be train aficionado must accomplish. And if you don't know the difference between acorns, adhesive railways, and adhesive trains, well then you must not have gotten to the first 3 terms in alphabetical order on the Glossary of Rail Terms Wikipedia. But even worse, once you have finally made it to the island, you are one of the 3% that passed the trials. You survived training day. You survived the train to Busan. You survived training Miss Daisy 2, Thomas Takes the Wheel. Once you have finally arrived, you still need to prove yourself to the malevolent overlord of the Isle of Trains, where everything in the island is made out of trains. Everything revolves around trains. Trains just shuttling cargo of more trains stuffed inside of a train like a train ducking sandwich, carting them off to more train stations like some Rube Goldberg machine of adjusting spring proportions. That's the 4th entry. That was much funnier when I was writing it down, and now saying it, I'm not quite so sure. But the gameplay seems very similar to Race for the Galaxy in that everything will cost you cards. Playing an additional train to your own locomotive will cost you cards in your hand. You'll discard them to pay for the cost. You will use cards in your hand as cargo to put into various train cabooses. Sticking it in that caboose to, no, I just... Sticking your train into that particular caboose compartment, they're all cabooses to me. I just think caboose is objectively one of the top 10 funniest words out there. But you're loading these train sections with more trains, and you're getting the ability of an opponent's train, who can then train his train, all the train down the train, and get some more trains. This segment's going off the rails. I meant to do that. Anyway, I think that's cool. I think that give and take of deciding, well, do I spend these cards on myself? Do I put it into my opponent for a one-time use or a one-time benefit, while potentially giving them a chance to shuttle all their cargo off to a different station and get more points for that? I think that's interesting. And this edition has also added in passengers, which you can add to your cars, so that yes, now we have finally brought some humans into the marvelous world of the Isle of Trains, because the train overlords have wanted to show off their island that is made of trains, for trains, by trains. But now these sentient train masters have lured the humans in to show them just how much better they are than the human race, and how terrified we should actually be. Before, of course, devouring them in their adjusting spring cases. I mean, it seems like a simple game. It's got a smaller footprint, it's going to come in a small box, and it seems neat. The retail edition is £18, which of course is only on the Kickstarter, so you feel better about pledging for the deluxe edition, which is £24 or $38 Canadian. Although the only difference between the retail and the deluxe is that there's going to be screen printed meeples, and of course you'll get a promo card called the Time Train, or the Future Train, depending on where you look in the time stream on the campaign page. And shipping's okay, it's $5 to the US, $11 to Canada. It's gonna be a small box, so this is why it's a smaller shipping cost. So for me to get it, it's like $50 total, and honestly, I'm tempted. If it were at the $30 mark, I'd probably pull the trigger on it, because I think the gameplay looks really simple, quick, it's a nice fun little theme, because of course every bit of theme that I've talked about is in the game itself. But then I looked up at retail to see if it existed at retail, if you could do pre-orders, and at Board Game Bliss, the previous version was $10 Canadian. And I know this is a new version, they've added in the passengers, the extra meeples, which they didn't have in the old version. They've added in a lot more cards too, because there was a problem with running out of cards in the deck to draw, and that's a horrible choice to have. So I'm glad that's fixed. And it's all updated with new artwork and a new spankin' package. So I get it, but it also makes me personally pause to shell out the extra money on the shipping for something that hopefully down the line, if it makes it to retail, you could pick up for cheaper. So I still think the gameplay looks actually really nice, but it's probably not something I'm getting. But if you're interested, check it out. It finishes Wednesday, August 10th at 6:59 p.m. Now, moving along, we have a game called Hijacked, and if this looks like it could fit in with the Architects of the West Kingdom series, you'd be right, because it is by the same artist, the Miko. But this is not by Shem Phillips, this is by a company called Greenest Games, whose focus is on producing games that are sustainably created for the environment, and that's really cool. And this is a game, of course, about being a hostage negotiator, trying to get passengers off of a plane that's on a tarmac that has been taken over by hijackers. And you have to do that before the police charge in and presumably do as police do and make the situation worse and get everybody injured. And I'm not completely sold on the theme of the game, but I do think that it is really thematic. One thematic part, my favorite thematic part, is that the best way to resolve a hostage situation a lot more quickly is to just have multiple hostage negotiators talking to the hijackers at once, right? That just helps speed things along. Oh, hey there, Terry. I'm just gonna pass the phone off to my friend Bill for a second while I tell the police to halt their roll and not Drex your sklounsk. I pull a cube from a bag. Over to you, Marlene. But this is a dice placement game, and the rulebook's okay. It honestly could use a few more thematic tie-ins to help for the clarity of the situation, and I almost never ask for that, but this is something where you don't want to say, oh, I just play that card. You can say, I rescue the hostage, or I move it over to the waiting area, or the reasons for why there are these extra steps to saving the hostages. But it's only 14 pages, and it's got a lot of pictures for, you know, your favorite dumb infant to understand. And the basic structure is each player will have 2 dice, and they can assign them in various spots on the board and get to do different things, like reserve hostages. You're saying, hey, these hostages, I want you to release this person in particular, or you can reveal who's actually on the plane because your manifest got burnt, or it spent 5 years in transit, it's still up in the sky. You can fulfill the demands of the hijackers to calm them down. You can talk to them and try to convince a specific hijacker and earn their trust. You can also swoop in and snipe, poor choice of words, a hostage from your opponent as well, your compatriot, because of course, this isn't a cooperative game. They say it's a semi-cooperative game. It's also not that. It's a competitive game where the person with the most points wins, but there's a chance for everyone to lose. That's not semi-cooperative in my book. That's competitive where no one can win. Semi-cooperative means multiple people could win, at least for me. And in here, well, you don't give a crap about the hostages, you just care about looking better for your boss than everybody else. But it looks, it looks fun. It looks solid. The art is appealing to me. I always love the architect's style of art, and the artist, the Miko, is, I really like that style of art. It gives it this fun sense of play. And I love the mandates of the company. This is their first Kickstarter project, but they're really focused on creating it sustainably and eco-friendly. And also, if you live in Europe, that is included in the price, which I know is a pretty huge deal to a lot of Europeans. And yeah, and following their sort of green initiatives, there's not going to be any plastic. It's all going to be sort of wood as well. And it comes in at a fairly reasonable price point. It's 44 euros or $58 Canadian. And then shipping is okay. It's 13 to 19 euros, 19 euros to get to Canada basically. And so that's on the higher end of things. So for me, it would cost me like $85 Canadian to get around that. And at that 45 to 60 range, where it is kind of projected, I'm definitely interested in it. It's the shipping, that makes it a little bit too much for me to justify. But if that sounds interesting to you, check it out. That finishes August 11th, that's Thursday at 4 a.m. And also, if you're interested in a great hijacking movie, check out Blood Red Sky. That one was pretty fun. Next up, we have Steve Jackson's Pyramid Scheme, which we're not covering. I'm just bringing it up because you have a backing problem when you're contemplating buying in to a literal pyramid scheme, just because it's by the creator Steve Jackson. And of course, I'm talking about Munchkin. I wish this was a Munchkin campaign and I just called it a pyramid scheme. Don't go down the rabbit hole. Stop with the Kickstarter pyramid schemes. Come on, Steve Jackson, who are you? Peterson Games? Blacklist Games? Mythic Games? I couldn't figure out which one was funnier, so I just put them all in, including this one. Who are you? Space Goat Games? Anyway, Pyramid Scheme is just a magazine about GURPS, which I'm not going to define for you. If you know, you can look into it. If you don't need to. It's an RPG thing. Anyway, let's move along to Silver Coin Age of Monster Hunters. And I did a full review on Silver Coin, so I'm only going to talk about it briefly here. If you're interested in my full thoughts, check out the review that I did. But I figured let's touch base about the campaign in terms of what has been unlocked, what is the potential value here. And some of the stretch goals that they have unlocked do have me excited. The most noticeable ones being the double-sided auction bidding board, which gives a variable auction bidding setting, so not everything is the same rate. So depending what characters and what things come up, you could potentially get them cheaper, or if the less desirable ones go in that slot, it might make them more desirable because of the discount that you can achieve. And I really like this. I like the bidding aspect on characters at the beginning of Silver Coin. That's the only time you do it. I guess I should talk a little bit about the overview. It's The Witcher, the board game. My quote on the campaign page is, this is the game that I wanted the Witcher game to be. I should have said the Witcher Old World to be more specific, because it does have this large sort of epic scope to it, and not as much focus on actual storytelling and campaign elements, which I felt The Witcher had a lot with their event cards. But one of my favorite mechanics was the auction phase, and so having a way to even make that more exciting and more variable, that gets me a bit pumped. And my other favorite part of it was this reputation track that you're constantly going up on and getting different bonuses, and they have that to be double-sided as well with a different track. So anything to add that sort of variability feels pretty fun to me. The price is expensive for this one. It's 85 euros, $112 Canadian. That's for the base game. And then the deluxe game is 145 euros or $192 Canadian. You get some dice trays and some metal coins and a play mat of the board as well. Which, if you like that stuff, you're probably interested in it. Lots of people do. Lots of people just get it and then I don't know what you do with it. I don't know how people store playmats. I would much rather use that space for storing more games than just a whole cubby filled with various playmats. Anyway, with shipping, the base game, which is the only thing that I'm interested in, would be about $135 Canadian to get to my door. And this is a tough call. I'm fairly certain that they might be sending me a copy because I did a review for them. At 112, it honestly feels like it should be a fair price, just knowing by all of the cards and components that they're throwing in there. And it not having a ton of minis. Your characters are minis, but that's about it, because you don't need them for any of the monsters, because you go to a spot and then you kind of reserve the card and the battles happen off the board. But not having that many minis is actually kind of a bonus to me, because that means there are so many other components and cubes and stuff, and it does feel expensive, but it also feels like a sort of fair price, if that makes sense. It doesn't seem like their margins are going to be that high because of the amount of components and the amount of stuff that is going to be in the game. And so it's a tough call. It's nice that it does feel fair at that price point. I am definitely intrigued in playing more of it. I'm interested in playing the cooperative version as well, because honestly, after playing the competitive, I thought I would like the competitive more, but because of the size and scale of the map and how it feels a little bit more solo and not as interactive as I would want on the actual game board, the interactive part is kind of fighting over the reputation track, and the game board itself, it doesn't feel as interactive to me. So it might end up being that the cooperative feels better, because then you can spread out and you're like, okay, I'm covering more ground, and it feels like you're working together, and that's where that interactivity could come from. So I'm intrigued. It's hard to, I'm always cognizant of if a game is over $100 though. That's my personal bar. If it's over $100, it has to be something incredible. And I really do believe that there will be continued development on this game, and that the creators who I've talked to and talked to, they seem very interested in feedback. They seem really great at incorporating suggestions and really listening to their playtesters and what people are saying. And so I believe that they will be putting out a really nice product. It's just all about if you're going to table this experience that's fairly large, and the learning curve feels a little bigger, and then it feels like this big epic experience, but then when you actually boil down the mechanics of it, it's not as epic as it might seem. So I don't know, that's all I'll say on this one. There are more thoughts over on the review, but those are just my musings after having been away from it for a while and having had the review come out at the beginning of their campaign page and looking at the price points and what you get right now. So if you are interested in that, that finishes Thursday, August 11th at 5:59 p.m. Moving along, we have a game called Weird Little Elf, where an imp has invaded Santa's workshop and is ready to ruin Christmas for everyone, and it's up to Santa to ask the questions of the elves to determine who is the imp and who are the elves. And so Santa will ask a question to all the elves, and the elves will have a normal card and can answer it sort of normally, and the imp will have a specific thing that they must do throughout the round. And it could be a physical thing like scratching their nose, or always laughing at somebody's response, or answering their question in a different way. And then you're going to chant, "The imp is missing, bless my beard. Look, that elf is acting weird." You have to do it in an elf voice. That's what elves sound like, right? Stuff of nightmares. That's actually a really weird character that I do called Francesco, which will eventually probably make its way on this channel. You heard it here first. And I mean, I may not be on board for singing and acting in games, but weird voices in games, yeah, you know I'm into it. Actually, no, I've never made a weird voice in my life. How dare you accuse me of such a thing? Please don't rewind the video. Anyway, this little game, it's 13 bucks US, $17 Canadian. Shipping to the US is $4. Shipping to Canada is $7, so it's like 25 bucks to get it to my door. It seems fun. I don't think I'd play it that much. I think it would be sort of a one and done. But like, as a party game goes, if you like Spyfall and that sort of stuff, and it might be good for kids too, they seem to be targeting that audience a little bit more. Check it out. It honestly seems really fun, and it blew my expectations from what it actually was. So that finishes August 11th at 6 p.m. Now, just quickly, we've got the Western Legends Mountain Range, and this video is epic. It really is. Way more epic than the actual product. This is the most fanfare I have ever seen about sticking your cards into a plastic slot, and I was there for the great Barbie gambling fiasco of 1992. Ken and Barbie's finances have never recovered from their illicit poker addiction. Why do you think Barbie has so many jobs? She has to. She has so much debt. But this is just a holder for all of your Western Legends components. That's all. Which, if you love it, well, hey, I love that for you. I mean, if you do love it, you probably already have the Western Legends big box that had a Kickstarter recently where it would probably give you a potentially even more functional holder than this, but hey, if you like Western whistling and whip sounds, which coincidentally was the workshop name for Western Legends until they had to go with Western Legends because the other one was copyrighted, well then you can check it out, and then you can stop checking it out because it's $95 for literally a pile of plastic. Which, even if Western Legends is your favorite game in the world, it's gotta not be worth it. Especially because the Western Legends big box, an entire storage box with a lot of insert, was $60. I mean, honestly, no offense, this has gotta be one of the dumbest things I've ever seen for purchase, and I was there for the great Ken and Barbie bankruptcy fiasco when Ken spent too much money on Tsuro Deluxe. But if you're interested in that, I know people love Western Legends, that's why I wanted to talk about it. That finishes August 11th at 7 p.m. Now, next up, we have Star Realms Rise of an Empire. Nope, it's not that. That would make sense. It's Star Realms Rise of Empire. And I recently put Star Realms as an honorable mention for that top value games that I put out last week. And it's good that I can now stand by that because you can get everything Star Realms here for only $279 US. What a deal! I'm just kidding, don't do this. But this specific campaign is for the legacy version of Star Realms. So you get 13 missions, you get 13 story chapters, and this will be for a 2-player head-to-head legacy game.
So it's just like Duel Monsters.
You know it had to be in there. Honestly, I wanted to play that clip 13 times, but I opted to keep you subscribed to the channel for now. Speaking of which, if you're not subscribed and you've made it this far, I mean, come on, you're watching the most niche series on this channel. YouTube will keep suggesting me to you. You might as well hit subscribe and just get on board. But it's cool, once this 13 campaign is finished, you can use all of the cards that you have created, the unique cards that you've created, in any other Star Realms capacity. So you can play it in any other 2 to 6 player Star Realm game. And so it's $59 US or $76 for the base legacy game, or it's $79 US and $102 for the replayable version. And basically what that will give you is a whole other box of cards. So whenever you're supposed to put a sticker on a card, you can actually find that card in this stack and pull it out and exchange it instead. And I like this as a concept. This concept really pulls me in. I think, endless replayability, I need this. But then I think to myself, well, I don't often play legacy games more than once, and I have a feeling it will be the same for a lot of you. And also, part of the fun of the legacy, for me, is having this unique thing at the end of the game, having a unique copy that only plays in a certain way. And if you have all of the cards, it's nice that you can have this unique copy, but it feels like it'll be a lot of busy work switching things back and forth. I don't know, I'm kind of torn. $20 doesn't seem like an unreasonable uptick to get access to all those cards. Certainly a better way to spend your $20 than just on their 4 health dials. Like, get out of here with that. But I think Star Realms is a proven system, and it's probably going to be pretty fun in a legacy format. Shipping's not the greatest, $15 to $25 if you're in the US, $25 to $35 if you're in Canada. That kind of takes it out of contention for me, because again, I'd be paying that $122 Canadian, and that's just too much for a 2-player sort of legacy experience. But if you are interested, definitely look for group pledges on this one. It has raised enough money that you will likely be able to find a group pledge if you live in a major city. There's some for Toronto. I just typed in on Google, BGG group by name of my city, and that hopefully should come up with some results. But if you are interested in this, that finishes August 11th at 10 p.m. Now, next up, we have Moonrakers Titans, and I already did some coverage on this as well. I did a 5 reasons you shouldn't back Moonrakers, where I talked about why it excites me, and it does excite me, and the potential reasons why it may or may not be good for you. So again, I'm going to cover it potentially less. I say that, and then it'll be exactly the same amount of time as every other segment. But this has raised over $2 million Canadian. I know, it's not $2 million US, but it's $2 million Canadian, so that's why I'm going to give you another 5 reasons. No, I can't. I actually don't think I could come up with them, because it looks like a fun game. The base game is a deck building and negotiation game where you are going to try to be completing these contracts, and those contracts will give you a number of different things. They'll give you points, they'll give you chances to draw cards, they'll give you resources, they'll give you whatever. They'll give you ship parts, they'll give you a variety of stuff. And going on the contract, you can say, hey, do you want to go on this contract with me? And they'll say yes. It's like, great, you got to take all the risk, and I will give you 1 card in exchange. And they'll say, well, that's a horrible deal. No, thank you. And then you'll say, well, you're 1 point away from winning, so that's why I'm giving you a horrible deal. And they'll say, yeah, okay, fine, I'll do it because I need this 1 card to continue to draw to hopefully be able to complete something on my own. And I like deck building and I like negotiation, so this obviously gets me excited. This campaign is for the Titan big box, so if you already have Moonrakers, it's going to give you 3 additional expansions, 1 that adds to the negotiation, 1 that adds more cards and more to the deck building, and 1 that adds to more specializing in a little map board, basically. Although my favorite part of the campaign is the opening line of the video where they say, yes, we've spent the last year listening to your praise and constructive criticism. We've taken all of your praise and just ate it up and took some of the thoughtful critiques as well. Not the unthoughtful ones, the ones that we thought were thoughtful. The ones that corresponded with the expansions that we wanted to do in the first place. But Moonrakers, I mean, Ivy Studios, their games are sexy. That's the best way to describe them. On a scale of 1 to Chip Theory, I feel like they exist in that 7.5 to 8 ratio. And speaking as a 2 on that scale, I know sexy. Out of the 3 expansions, I think I would probably get the Overload expansion. That is the most interesting to me because that's what I like in my expansion. It's just more cards. It's more deck building. It's more of what you like. But honestly, all the expansions seem good. Moonrakers seems fun. It's just that price point which you have to decide. 1 expansion is $35. The base game is $65 US, which is $84 Canadian. And then plus shipping, again, brings it over that $100 mark for me. It's $99 for all 3 expansions, so you save $6 there. Or it's $179 US, $231 Canadian to get everything. And as I was going through this, I was thinking, yeah, why am I not backing? Why do I have it in my head that I'm not, like, seriously considering backing this one? And now I remember, it's because I'm poor. And also, through the benefit of being on YouTube, some very generous people have offered to play it with me, which is great, and I look forward to that happening at some point. And so knowing that I have that possibility out there, I feel fine in waiting, trying it, deciding if it is something that I would want to add to my personal collection at that point in time, and then seeking out a copy. But for those of you who are getting it, honestly, I think you're going to get a solid game with really solid production quality, and I hope you love it. Again, this is one where you should look for group pledges, because it is raised a bunch. Lots of people are excited about it. You can cut down on that shipping and potentially make it a more manageable purchase for you as well. Anyway, if you're interested in that, that finishes August 13th at 10 p.m. Now, next up, we have a game called The Big Conspiracy, which I am overjoyed to talk about, because it is a card game that is truly worthy of an air horn. That's right, we've got ourselves a true blue funny card game. Here we go. I know, let's play it again. Let's live in this moment. Oh, what a time to be alive. And it is actually a funny card game, or at least I think it's funny. And I don't often think these funny card games are funny, hence the incredibly sarcastic air horn that I usually play. But it is funny. They have a whole website devoted to telling you why the Big Conspiracy card game is actually a big conspiracy. And that's just so good. Their funding, I think, was $5,000, and so their stretch goals were at 5,001, 5,002, and then they're crossed off, and it's like fake, which I also thought was a very funny touch. The tinfoil hat add-on being banned by the government, also a funny touch. It's a great campaign page. I love in that other website that tells you why it's a conspiracy, it says, the big conspiracy makes rules. You know who else has rules? The man! when you hover over it. It really brought me a lot of joy in something where I could have been really rolling my eyes. And I'm sorry, but you all need to watch their how to play video as well, because they use the funny card game air horn in, I mean, it's not the funny, it's the very, stereotypical, DJ air horn. That's the soundbite that it's called on my computer. But they use that twice as well in their how to play video. And it's just, if there's one way to my heart, Big Conspiracy, you found it. And it's definitely not the thousands of dollars that they've paid me to promote this. No, I would say it even if I didn't get that, I swear. No bias here. Anyway, it's a fun page. The actual game itself, I don't know if I would get that much out of it. Basically, there'll be a number of cards on the table and you're trying to claim them as your own, and you do that by playing cards from your hand that have a number value on them and then a reason why this conspiracy happened. So it's like, oh, I know the president was in on it because I read it on this website, I saw it on the back of a cereal box, I did this. And so you have all these conspiracy theories lining up, and then your opponent can be like, haha, I actually blocked that social media with this card. So it's kind of back and forth, take that, just, play cards down and laugh at what they say. And that doesn't have as much longevity for me, but still, $25 US, $5 shipping to the US, $13 shipping to anywhere. I mean, it makes it again at that sort of Isle of Trains point for me, which is the $50 price point. And I want to support it just because I think it's really great and funny. But at that point, I'm probably not going to. Maybe I'll just throw in $1, honestly, for the joke. That's what I'll do. I'll back it for $1 for the laugh. Anyway, that finishes Monday, August 15th at 11 p.m. if it sounds like something you'd be interested in. But definitely, honestly, go check out this campaign page because I thought it was funny. I thought it was well done. And even if you don't get it, it's worth the laugh. Now, next up, we have Era of Kingdoms and also their Inquisition expansion. And I'll get to the expansion in a second because it looks really good. Like, it adds a lot to the game. This is a game which you're going to add cards to your own little tableau and build up your kingdom. And as you build your kingdom, and once you build enough stuff in your kingdom, it levels up, in a sense. So at the end of your turn, you're always drawing 5 cards from this basic deck. But once you've leveled up your kingdom, you start to get better cards. And once you've leveled it up to the next level, you start to get better cards that you can incorporate into your kingdom as well. And the gameplay of it kind of reminds me a bit of Imperial Settlers in that communal deck that people are drawing buildings from, hoping to level up their own area. But I'm not a fan of Imperial Settlers, and I think I would like this one more because it follows the Seven Wonders resource style. So if you have the resources available to you, you don't have to spend them. They're always available to you, and you can build those specific cards. So you're going to get 3 actions on your turn. You can play cards, you can draw cards, although I don't know why you would ever draw cards because you're going to get to draw them at the end of your turn anyway. But it seems neat. And then this expansion that they're bundling in with this second printing of it, there are 2 additions to it, the science track and the religion aspect to it. Science track is basically a tech tree that you can spend stuff on and get permanent or one-time bonuses, which of course, who wouldn't want a delicious tech tree in their game? And then the religion, there are 3 different types of religious doctrines you can pursue, and they all do different things and have different benefits. Some help you with combat, because combat is a thing. You can attack everyone at once and try to pillage their area and get points for that. You can sacrifice your own buildings to make people destroy theirs, like a religious offering. So it definitely seems interesting. And the base game feels like an okay price point. $45 US, $60 Canadian. That's the price point that I like to see. The expansion's $40 US, and I'm drawn into that expansion maybe more than I'm drawn into the game. The potential applications feel really nice. And so the bundle for that is $75 US, which is $97 Canadian, and then shipping to Canada is another $23. So the 2 together seem like too much. Shipping is a bit expensive. To the EU, it's like $24. To Canada, it's $17. To US, it's $12. So for the US, honestly, it might be worth it. Canada, to get to Canada, again, it's in that $80 range. Same as Hijacked, right? Where it's something that I think looks cool, but I just don't want to pay that much for it. And especially since I'm personally interested in more of the expansion content, I think it's a pass for me, but I know all of you Kickstarter addicts out there who are just aching to purchase things. Well, this feels at least more on the reasonable end, so there you go. And mechanically, I hope it's fun. Again, with those, it all depends on how fun it is to play the actual cards. The rulebook can outline it, and then the cards actually might be not that interesting of decisions or feel that good to engine build, but from a rulebook stance, it looks pretty solid. So if you're interested in that finishes next Tuesday, August 16th at 9 a.m. And finally, our last campaign of the week, we have Return to Dark Tower, and this is another one that I already did a 5 Reasons You Shouldn't Back Kit on, and I wish I'd been able to throw that joke into the other video. It would have been performing a lot better than it is. But again, I won't go into too much detail about the game because I talk about it a lot and what I'm interested in and what I'm not interested in over there. And there's some great comments of people doing back and forth to my points as well, which I always love, and I think it's always incredibly valuable. Because if I've learned anything from the Zerg, a hive mind is never the wrong way to go. But if you don't know anything about Dark Tower, I'll give you a quick breakdown. There's a big tower in the middle. Every turn you're going to throw some skulls in it. It's going to spit those skulls out onto the board. When? You never know. When they land, they're going to land in a quadrant of the board. You're going to put them into a building. If there are too many skulls in that building, the building explodes. That's bad for you. There are monsters on the board. Too many monsters, that's bad for you. You will have to complete a scenario, getting various things, navigating around the board, and managing it so that it doesn't become too overwhelming, and then you can win the game. But for that experience, it's $150 US plus shipping. So for Canada, it's $195 US, which is $5 more than the MSRP. And in this printing, they're also offering the expansions, which if you do have Dark Tower and you do like it, these are the sort of expansions that likely won't be readily available. I heard a lot in the comments that, "Oh, you're an idiot. I hate you. Let me get my toy because I haven't been able to find my expansions anywhere." And that's legitimate. Yeah. If you really like the game and you want more of it, this is probably your best chance to get those expansions. Their main expansion, the newest one that's coming out, there were some in the original campaign, but the newest one that's coming out is around $50. And I say around $50 because it's actually $55. But, it's easier to justify in your head if it's 50, right? And this one, I mentioned in the other video that I thought it was actually a decent deal because you get 4 new characters, and there's only 4 in the base game to start with, so the variability that comes with that feels good. You get some other different modes, and I thought it seemed okay, but I believe I was likely skewed by it being a third of the price and not remembering that it still is $55 US, which is expensive for an expansion. And a few people in the other video, because of course I read all the comments, said that they thought it wasn't a very good deal for what you're actually getting. Like actual components wise and gameplay wise, they felt that it was a bit too overpriced. So take that for what you will from people who actually have the game and own the game. For me, this is just way too expensive for what it is. Other games do this exact same feeling of game at a third of the cost. And there's no reason for me to buy it, but it does mark our first successful board game over on BackerKit that I think I've talked about other than the joke versions of BackerKit things that I tend to throw in here. So there you go. That one finishes also next Tuesday at 11:59 p.m. Just squeaking in that Tuesday bar to be included on this week's crowdfunding countdown. So that's it. That's it for the week. Pretty great week, honestly. Looking at all of these campaigns, I can't think of too many that are real just misses. Of course, that might be terrifying to you because you'll think, oh, I could back everything. I must back everything. But again, just because they aren't misses doesn't mean they're going to be worth the money that it would take to get them to your door, which is something that I always try to factor in for me personally and bang that drum over and over on this channel. So every week I do a pick for me and a pick for you. The pick for me being the thing that I'm the most interested in personally, and the pick for you being what I want you to buy, what I want you to spend your money on so that I don't have to, and can encourage you to make an irresponsible fiscal decision, just like Barbie and Ken. We change this to the pick for Barbie, pick for Ken. But this is a tough week for me. There are a lot of games that I am quite interested in. Moonrakers, I am legitimately interested in. Silver Coin, I'm interested in. I enjoyed my experience with that. Isle of Trains I like. Weird Little Elf I like. Star Realms I like. All of those 5 could be the pick for me. But instead, I'm actually going to say the Era of Kingdoms. That's going to be my official pick for me because, well, I like highlighting the little guy, and it hasn't raised as much as these other campaigns. And also because I legitimately got that little thrill when looking at the rulebook. I thought, okay, this is really clear. This seems very simple, easy to pick up, and a nice tableau building flow of things. And I like the escalating gameplay that I see, and I also just really like what I think the expansion content will bring. I think the ideas there seem exciting, and so yeah, that's why I want to highlight it, because I think that is the one that currently, at least going through the list this time around, I thought, you know what, that does sound cool. So if there's kind of a tie in my head, and there were a lot to choose from, that's why this one is also getting the highlight, because it is the least funded. So, just pump it up a bit or highlight it for that visibility. And then my pick for you is also not going to be any of those 5. I did that deliberately. My pick for you is going to be Shoes Tactics, because I think this is a cool idea. That's 2 times in a row that it's going to be a roll and write print and play. But the reason why it is the pick for you is because you need to stop spending money on all those unfulfilled projects. Believe me, we've been talking about it in the Discord, and I can't recommend anything expensive now that I know the seriousness of the situation. But also because I think this idea of a campaign roll and write feels cool, the different maps will feel fun, and the fact that it is a roll and write and it is meant to be written on and it's meant to be that one-time use also to me feels like there might be a reason to return to the campaign and go through, because it's not like a legacy. It's not like Star Realms where you have to set everything up and there's that extra cost associated with it. You just have to print it out again. And the decision space of choosing what the top or the bottom on your cards and how that can implement in your Tetris puzzle, I think that seems like a little fun idea. So I'm hopeful for this one. It being at the $6 US, not $5. They thought they could get away with $6, and honestly, they can. It doesn't make it a completely outrageous purchase if it happens to not be your style. Again, only purchase it if you're actually gonna be into it. I'm contemplating it, but then I'm like, I don't know if I have the go-getter attitude to print things off, honestly. But yeah, that's one I also want to highlight because I like the concept and I like where it's going, and I hope that it does well as well. So those are my picks of the week. I feel happy about them. It was a fun week. Let me know what you are backing this week. I'm sure a lot of you will be backing Moonrakers. I know a couple of you are backing Silvercoin. I'm always curious to see what you are backing, what you are excited about, so that I can live vicariously through you as well. Other than that, thank you so much for being here. My name is Chris George. Oh no. I don't have a catchphrase, but I appreciate you all. I hope you have a wonderful day. And honestly, next time you see your urologist Barbie, give her a tip. She's really in massive debt. See you in the next one.